Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of OfferVault TV's Earning Per Call Show. I'm your host, Bill Somerville, and founder of Insurance Pay-Per-Call Network, PolicyBuying. And today we have an awesome guest. He's pay-per-call extraordinaire, Mr. Jake Lynn. Jake, let's get right into it, brother. First things first, can you give me a little bit of your background / experience in the insurance industry, man?
Yeah, man. So it goes back about 5 years ago. I got my insurance license as an underground coal miner. I was working third shift in the mines, that graveyard shift. And I was literally praying on my knees. I was underneath the coal mine in Kentucky. And I was like, man, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be something else that I can do. And as I was in the middle of this prayer with my wife at Cracker Barrel in Kentucky, somebody that I used to know messaged me and said, hey man, won't you join my financial firm? Won't you get an insurance license? And I was like, okay, this is real timely in the middle of praying with my wife. This has got to be it. So I took a leap of faith, man. And so I got my insurance license. I was that, door to door local life insurance agent for about 2 years, calling natural market, calling all the different friends and family, and then it got to where it was like, well, I think I need to buy some leads. And so I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to buy these leads, I ought to be able to close these over the phone. And so and then it finally got in a position where I had to do the telesales thing because over 3 years ago, my wife and I went through IVF pregnancy. Wow. And so thank God it worked the first time. We have our little daughter. She's 3 now. But as my wife was pregnant, we had to go to a lot of doctor's appointments, and I couldn't find myself in a position where I was driving hours on end to be able to go sell a life insurance policy face to face. Man, nobody had time for that when you had doctor's appointments. And I was determined to never miss a doctor's appointment. So so I learned how to do telesales, man. And from there, I built a team and built out my own scripts and training and things like that. And then I had a really good experience with a guy named Vince Pompanato, who's passed away now with North Star Insurance Advisors. And he took me up under his wing, man. It really mentored me and showed me the ropes and really helped me out. And so now I have this training system where, I'm really just paying homage to the late Vince Pompanato through my training. Compassion before commission is what the motto for my podcast is. And, nice. And that's what I teach agents, is to be able to serve, not sell, and have compassion before commission. And now is the time to be able to really pick up this skill set of phone-based sales. So my main focus is final expense telesales, right. Though I do consult with and work with some Medicare call centers because, it's all that senior demographic of how to have empathy-based selling, and all that's really, really important.
It's a hot market, man. So you went from slinging fossil fuels to slinging policies.
Yeah, man. So I went from slinging block. Really, I was stacking concrete block underground. And yeah, dude. So that's where everybody's like, oh man, you're such a big dude. I was like, well, I was underground coal miner, so that's probably got something to do with it.
Yeah, that'll definitely get you to crack that life and health book and get to studying real quick when you're just like, oh,
yeah, man.
I gotta go back to that tomorrow. Damn.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it puts you in a position of gratitude, man. And sure. Gratitude is a seed for more. So like, I'm grateful for everything that has happened for me, big on like not things happen to you, but happens for you.
Sure.
And so, that really taught me hard work and discipline for sure.
Yeah. I look at that stuff the same way, man. Like opportunity versus an obstacle. Like the only difference to it really is just perception, right? It's just like, sure. Losing this particular job an obstacle, or is it an opportunity for you to shift into, another great, position that you would have not done otherwise unless like you were let go, which seems to be what's happening with a lot of the COVID stuff. It's like people are moving into, out of, let's say, like the restaurant business industry and are coming into, our industry or other industries that, you don't need to be right next to each other. Like, as much as I would love to be sitting, in my office with you and doing this interview, like it's not a necessity, and in times like this, that's right. It's extremely powerful. It gives you a lot of options. So
yeah, man, for sure. It's definitely a skill set to pick up, in a pandemic. I mean, this having the phone-based sales. Like I have people that listen to my podcast from Great Britain that asked me to hop on and train them on a Zoom, and I was able to do that because of Zoom. And I have this skill set, and they wanted, so like I had 70 different sales reps that I was able to teach them telesales, this compassion for commission and one call closes and stuff like that,
Wow.
And it's an incredible time that we're in. It's like a once in a lifetime opportunity to really figure out what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
And get passionate about it, and then have that burning desire to want to succeed, like to me, there's no other option to me. And then there's no success like failure too, right? So like people right now, they've gone through the failure and stuff like that. Now let that be an opportunity to figure out what you really want to do and how to go about doing it. Surround yourself around the right people to help you get there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I had a story a lot like yours too. And it was like, when the pain got great enough, it forced me to spend some time, to take, vacation days to go to, digital marketing conferences, to read books and, and go online and, get involved with, groups on Facebook and to, spend money on, consultants and courses and ingest those materials. And, I mean, like, I try to get a course like once every quarter. I try to spend some money on a course out there that I see that could be valuable for me or valuable for the staff or a policy bind. So it's out there, man, and to bring, to bring into the next question. So I know that insurance industry, I knew that you were in it. Digital marketing, how did you get involved in that? You just got curious about the leads that you were purchasing and said, I want to try to do this myself? Or
Yeah.
how did that come into play?
Yeah, that's a great question. So early 2019, we closed down my call center. I was at the mercy of my upline to be able to provide our agents quality calls because we only had one product that we could sell. And so the calls had to be qualified before my agents would, sit there. And any other type of sales strategy was going to be demoralizing to our agents, right? To having to sit there and qualify calls. And, you don't put a licensed agent in qualified, like unqualified campaigns, And
Sure.
so I was at the mercy of the upline, and they just weren't supporting us like they had promised us, months prior to. So it put me in a position where I had to figure it out. Like, and the only way to figure it out was to sever ties with that relationship, and then to, suck it up and do that 1 year non-compete situation. So I said, you know what, during this 1 year non-compete, I'm going to learn two things. I'm going to learn digital marketing, and I'm going to learn everything I can about SaaS technology. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that I learn how to not only get the leads, but how to convert them faster. And so I was able to do that. And so I started to develop own livetransfers.ai, which was this domain that I was reselling some AI, like live calls, kind of like your pipes and your drips and all that. So
Sure.
I was kind of at the forefront of that. And I caught the attention of Convoso, and Nima and I hit it off right off the rip. I was in a position where, you know what? I know this industry is full of shiesty people, but there's something about you. I trust you. Here's everything that I've been working on and the companies that I'm talking to. And he was like, you know what? We're going to fly you out here to LA. So I came back and forth 3 different times from Kentucky to LA. And finally, like at the third time, I was like, all right, bro, we're going to have to figure out, because I got a 3-year-old little, well, my daughter was 2 at the time. I got to figure out how to, where daddy's home more with my daughter more. So they decided to go ahead and move us. So we moved from
Nice.
Kentucky to LA. So I really delved deep into, technology, digital marketing, because, Convulso is typically the go-to, especially in lead generation. And most of the people that are watching this have seen or heard of Convulso, all the different conferences that you go to. And I had the opportunity to be their best sales leader that they ever had in the history of the company, because I was so hungry to learn more, network, build out my networks, and meet people like you. And, just Convulso really helped open up that door and that window of opportunity for me to really learn digital marketing and all the different tech stacks that are behind it to help drive it forward.
There's a ton of them. Trust me.
Yeah.
there have been a couple of times I know we were talking and I just, I would see, sometimes it can be overwhelming. Just look at everything and I'm just like, oh, dude,
Yeah,
I don't have time for this right now. I've got 1,000 things going on. But,
for sure.
you put it to me in a way that it was easy to understand. And it's great that we're kind of moving in this direction, because the next question that I have for you is talking about call center software like Convoso, right? Something that's always interests me, whether we're purchasing calls from somebody or whether we're generating our own, is contact cadence. The frequency in which you're contacting, and then also the method in which you're contacting. And for anyone out there that's listening to this that's not familiar with the terminology, it's basically the method and the frequency in which you contact a lead, right? Contact
Yeah.
cadence.
Mhm.
Could you shed a little bit of light on the contact cadences that you've set up, or that have worked well for you? You don't have to
Yeah.
get too crazy into special sauce, but just like some,
Right.
your initial experience with, setting up contact cadences, and maybe just some crazy stuff that you found while doing it or testing on it.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would say that to really dissect that question in two parts, obviously B2C and contact centers is a great one. And then B2B, like how do you build, drum up more business, like using cadences like LinkedIn and getting on podcasts. There's so many different ways that
Sure.
you can build a sales cadence, right? And so like in the B2C world, obviously you want to be able to structure a time and be knowledgeable of the demographic, right? What time are they most likely to be home? Is it a senior demographic? Well, they're probably home between this hour and this hour, where
Sure.
they really are at a high level, are able to talk on the phone. So you really want to structure in a way of being mindful of the demographic of which you're reaching out to, and
Okay.
in the streams of communication that they're used to receiving. So I wouldn't necessarily want to text 3 or 4 times somebody that between the ages of 65 to 80 as much as I would somebody between the ages of 25 to 50, right? So
Sure.
so those cadences are important based on the demographic of who your who your customer base is going to be and who your prospects are, and communicating them on a level which you can obviously communicate to them.
Sure.
So, I'm not going to sit here and worry about email cadence to somebody, in this more senior demographic, as I am somebody that's kind of in the middle bracket.
Yeah.
So really, you got to be mindful of who you're trying to talk to, how you're trying to reach them. So typically you would set it up, get on a system that has the multi-touch, right? You got the email, text, ringless voicemail. You got
Mhm.
the AI, the outbound IVR. You got so many different outreach methodologies that you can incorporate. But the best ones that I've seen, you get on a platform that has it all. So it's less, like you said, like it can be overwhelming. So that way it's not as overwhelming if you can get on a platform that has all these different types of outreaches. And not only that, but automates it for you, right?
Mhm.
So in not as much as like the times and all that is as important as the message that you're sending, right? So that's where the sales part of me goes in, and I want to read what you're sending in the scripts, and then that you have the opt out language as well. And
Mm.
so all that is really important. And then if you want to dive into B2B, how to drum up business, we can always do that. But I feel like the question is more geared towards contact centers.
Sure. 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 Uh, Optimizing. So you spoke a little bit about, and I know you even earlier you had spoken about you do some consulting work, right? So
Yeah.
here's an opportunity to drop a bomb on me and some other people watching
Right on.
the show. When you're optimizing your contact cadences, do you have any statistics or anything that you use, kind of like a standard operating procedure in your mind, like oh, that needs to be optimized, that's not working? Like, can you shed any type of light on that? I know it's kind of a broad question, but
Yeah. Well, there's certain KPIs that you want to start with, right? And how can you really take a look at under somebody's hood of their whole operation, which I typically want to start with the KPIs that they're currently tracking. Because
okay.
are they tracking connection rate and contact rate? Because those are two different things, right?
Sure.
So Um, so you want to be able to look at, where are you at on the connection rate, your contact rate, and then, we want to obviously look at of that contact rate, how many are going through the sales process with you. Are you filling the funnel, or is it one call close? Like, we have to be able to look at the overall what they're trying to achieve, right? And their desire, help them get to their desired outcome at the end of the day. So if your desired outcome is to increase your conversions, well, obviously we want to start with how many conversations are you actually having based on your connection? Like, is your data any good? Like, maybe we need to shut off a certain list. Maybe we need to look at another list provider. We need to evaluate and maybe get on some kind of software that helps us make real-time decisions, where in real time I can decide, okay, this list that I got from so-and-so isn't performing so well because the connection rate is low. And I need to be able to take a look at another list that might outperform that list. So I hope that kind of answers your question, but to really help somebody understand connection rate, contact rate. And a lot of people, when I ask them, like, how do you track this? They're like, well, I know like 1 out of 8 I sell. I'm like, well, 1 out of 8, but like, how do you get that? Like, where does that number come from? Like, how do we get there? And a lot of people, they never even take in consideration the contact rate, connection rate.
It's funny that you're mentioning that. We're actually, so for PolicyBond, we're actually looking at a couple, I guess the correct terminology would be BI tools, business intelligence, like Looker and some programs like that allow you to take data and ingest it and then make, real-time reporting on like all different types of, like our sales crew, right? Or our affiliate crew, or staff. I call them my crew, but they're staff, right? Or, our customer service staff, like setting up KPIs and pulling that data in from all different kinds of, programs that we're currently using, that we can just boom, put it right in there and they can spit it out nice and organized. Cause I found out in this industry, when I got more into the publisher side of it, that I thought I was organized. Right? I'm not organized. Not as organized as I thought I was, because someone shoots you a question, about, how a specific data set is organized. And I just immediately, by the time I get halfway through the question, I can just look at it and be like, damn, this is organized. My answer, we don't do that now. or the old NA, not available.
Right.
Sorry, that's not, that data doesn't, it's there, I'm sure. It's just not, it's not organized at all.
Right. I would first want to take a look and see, like, why is that important to you? And maybe it's not as important as they might think, or is it really that important? How you might be able to, fully understand their need,
Sure. Talk to me about compliance, man. When you're buying data, right? So this is something that we've, paid some tuition on before. When you're buying data, besides, the great third-party verification like Journaya and Trusted Form, not all data is going to have that. Not all people are going to put that, on their data. But if it doesn't have that, right, what else are you looking for? What else is something that you can tell, hey, this data is compliant. It's working.
Yeah, for sure. And first I got to say, I'm not a TCPA attorney, so I got to throw that out there.
Good job.
I got to give that full disclosure. But I have spent some time with like Eric Troutman, the TCPA world. He's been on my podcast. Neil Kin at Contact Center Compliance. Like, these are relationships that I like to have in the industry. They're must-have relationships, right? And so what I have learned and what I've found is that, your opt-in language has got to be there. You got to give them an opportunity to opt out. So the opt-out language has got to be there as well. And then also, now I get it. There's still call centers that scrub, and then they good. If you're going to scrub data, they need to get some kind of litigator firewall protection, whether that's their DNC or Blacklist Alliance. Like, definitely want to protect yourself and build up that firewall there, so that you don't have to pay the dummy tax, like you and I both have had, sounds like, in the past before.
Oh yeah.
said tuition. I call that dummy tax. So we both pay the dummy tax. So definitely, obviously, you want to consult with the TCPA attorney to review your opt-in language, put them on retainer. There's TCPA insurance now. There's so many resources right now that are out there. Like, there's no excuse why you don't, implement one to start with and then start adding to your arsenal as you go. And then I'm leery of, vendors that won't send me a Jura pass through or trusted form. They don't pass through that information. But at the end of the day, this business is all about relationship, getting into business with people that you like, know, and trust, and having looking at credibility sources and getting some references from lead vendors, checking the partner pages. Bro, there's so much to it. But you got to start somewhere. And I feel like the best place to start to protect yourself is building up a firewall with Blacklisted Alliance, or DNC.com has a firewall for litigators as well. I think that's the best. If you can't start it anywhere, you want to start there.
Yep. That's perfect. That's where we started. Right. So that's perfect advice. Your podcast, man, tell me a little bit about the podcast. How long has it been running for?
Yeah. So it's been running for 5 months, and it's crazy how fast it took off in the first 8 weeks. We were ranking in iTunes. We're the only active podcast out there for phone-based sales. There are other ones out there for call centers, contact centers, and I see a lot of guys that are and gals that are starting up their podcasts in the industry, which is great. But it's the only one where I bring in other entrepreneurs who actually have cut their teeth on the phone, making the dials, dialing and smiling, and so definitely. And it all started from an idea, right? What's a good idea without execution? What's a good idea without action? And so I actually had to take it upon myself to go, like you mentioned, courses. I love that about you, man, because I actually invested in myself. Real easy $47 a month course by Eric Thomas, Extreme Execution. And Nice. It allowed me to implement all the different steps that I needed to make to get the podcast out there, bro. And I would honestly say that the podcast has, in so many different ways, and over the last 5 months, has radically impacted my life. It's made me a better communicator. It's got me outside my comfort zone. It's made me a better father, husband. It just made me overall better sales professional, because I'm just interacting with people and I'm putting myself in a position to learn and grow.
That's great. That's awesome, man. That's all kinds of spillover benefits from just getting out there and communicating. Yeah. This social distancing, it doesn't have to be an obstacle, man. It can, it truly can be an opportunity for us to, connect on another level and still get that, that human interaction and have those Q&As and still provide value. That's great. I guess it's a little bit more common for us because same way, I cut my teeth on the phones too. Right. So the concept of an in-person sale is pretty foreign to me. I've done it a couple times, but I much prefer just whoosh,
right,
just ripping it. That's why when we started this, I'm like, hold on. Let me turn my phone down a little bit. That and then
right. This man got so many phones in there.
just one on each ear. Talking into one, talking into the other. There had been some days like that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, because at the end of the day, connection is currency.
Yeah.
But first you got to learn to connect with yourself, right? Because to me, telesales, it's all a mental game, and you really got to get yourself sharp. And I believe when we take care of the person, in the word salesperson, the calls will take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. So I got this phone, and then you can't see it down there, but I got my other phone, my spiritual one. I got a little meditation pillow that every once in a while I just gonna go there.
Yeah.
Be like, Lord.
Yeah, that's right.
Help me with this one.
Yeah.
Help me with this day.
That's right.
So I'm making all kinds of phone calls from this room. We got them going all over the place. This world and other ones as well.
That's awesome, man. I love it. Yeah. And the reality is that last one you mentioned there is whenever you got that one going, then everything else just to take care of itself, bro. We often overlook that. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Your podcast. Tell me about this. Tell me about your favorite show, right? Didn't have to be your favorite guest, but your favorite show and why it was your first, your last one, middle one. I'll let you take it.
Yeah. Well, I would say it was right before social distancing. It was the first big podcast. Like it was the highlight of my podcast career, as you would say. 2 months ago, I drove down to Irvine, California to go to Sports One Marketing, and I got to rock out with David Meltzer. With
Wow.
nobody has never heard of that. I mean, he has a podcast sponsored by Entrepreneur Magazine, and I got to sit down with him and really, I learned so much. He really put into perspective my whole motto of compassion before commission. Compassion is a journey. Commission is an outcome. And
Hmm.
oftentimes, man, we never learn to emotionally detach ourselves from the outcome because we got to get the bag. We got to pay our bills. And like,
Hmm.
even these last couple of weeks for me have been definitely a trial or a test of like, do I really practice what I preach? Because it's hard not to be attached to that outcome. But he really broke it down to me of being able to enjoy the journey. And then we talked about alter ego effect. Like he brought so much value in that conversation. And not to mention, I got to do it one-on-one, very professional video podcast. Gary Vee sat in the same seat that I was in. Like a lot of high celebrities have been, you know what I mean? Like sat in that same seat, bro. So to me, it was a really good experience, a learning experience. And he put that podcast on his podcast. So now I can say that I've been featured on Entrepreneur. It's like, but none of this would have ever happened if I didn't get that course and learn what it takes to execute an idea, bro.
Well, that's just because I, as well as many other people, are slow to uptake sometimes. What was give us the name of that course one more time?
Yeah, it's Extreme Executions, the 1% Club with Eric Thomas. So ET inspires. Like to me, that's a like a long distant mentor. Like we all have mentors in our lives. You and I talked about, I think a couple of weeks ago, Think and Grow Rich,
Yes.
and like the Earl Nightingale and all that. Like the
Yes. The
reality
strangest
is,
secret.
yeah, bro. Like the reality is, a lot of this stuff all originated from that, right? So, so like even David Meltzer, he talks about vibrations and all these different stuff. Well, it comes from that book, bro. Napoleon Hill wrote. So, if you really want to get down and understand how like that whole methodology of the Think and Grow Rich and how that really works, is like just pick up the book, man. A lot of these influencers, they're quoting stuff that's straight out that book. Just saying.
That's it. They're just
Yeah.
pulling it, rearranging it, and serving it up again.
Yeah.
And that's what some of us need. I mean, you can hear a thing so many times. You read a book like, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? Just
Yeah.
like one of the pieces of advice: smile when you first meet somebody.
Yeah. All right.
You know,
Yeah.
thanks, Dale. Appreciate that one, man. But it's,
Yeah.
it's true. Sometimes you walk into an interaction and that fundamental stuff, it's the first stuff to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
For
know,
sure.
it's first
Yeah.
stuff to go.
And I always train agents smile so big your ears get wet. Because you have the first 7 seconds is what you have to impress somebody on the phone, right? So I
Yeah.
always say, whenever we're making an outbound call, you always say, "Is this the famous Bill Somerville?" And he'll be like, "Well, I don't know if I'm famous. Yeah, but who is this? Oh, great. Let me tell you why I'm calling, right?" So,
That's
but
great.
I say that smiling and like, really, I'm about to have some fun with this one. Because to me, as a sales professional and a sales trainer, we talk about KPIs. We talked about KPIs earlier, like the connection rate, contact rate, but no KPI gets me more excited than counting how many times I make somebody laugh.
That's awesome, man.
That's it.
I used
Yeah.
to, I had a mentor over at Data Lot, still kind of a mentor to me. It was the corniest thing ever, but every time everyone laughed, including me, what I was saying, that you're a terrible person. Why do you say that? But people would say like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he would say, "If I was doing any better, I'd beat you." And like,
Right.
even
Yeah.
terrible. I'm like, oh God, such a terrible dad joke response.
Yeah.
But it's like the day moves so quick that when someone says that to you, you're just like, what do you want?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we're gonna have a conversation, and
Yeah.
I can't pull it off. I've tried it a couple of times. I can't pull it off, but he he pulls it off great. I'm gonna actually send this to him and say, hey, you got to watch this. Right?
Yeah.
A shout out.
When somebody asked me when I was around the office in Convosa, I was known as the guy that was always hanging there in there like a hair in a biscuit. It's an old thing we learned in the coal mines. Like, how you doing, Jake? Oh, I'm hanging in there like a hair in a biscuit.
That's how they knew this guy's not from LA.
Right. Yeah. I got on a podcast with Ryan Stewman, the hardcore closer. He started it off. He said, finally, I get on a podcast with somebody that sounds more country than me.
That's awesome, man. So speaking of podcasts, I stole one of your questions, right? And it's the final question. It's the final question I'm going to ask you on this segment. What are you most excited about right now?
Yeah, man. I love this question. I appreciate that. Yeah. So I would say, man, I'm so excited that I know that this moment that leads to this moment leads to the moment, and the moment being 3 feet from gold, bro, like not giving up and continue to push. Like I'm working on getting my agency off the ground. I got my training system coming out on Lightspeed VT. I'm getting mentored by like Bradley, Rob Liano, some really big people in the industry, bro. Like this is a really exciting time right now. And it's also a trying time too, because you're talking about opportunity cost, right? Which, when starting a business, like if you're not on the phone, you're not making money. But there's activity that you get paid for, and there's activity you don't get paid for. And the activity you don't get paid for pays off bigger in the long run. But not everybody, especially in your family, see that, right? And so it's like, I know that I'm 3 feet from gold. I'm not giving up. And I'm so excited about to get this bird in the air, bro. And it's about to be a beautiful thing, man. So yeah.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Dude, as always, man, I'm always stoked to hang out with you and to have you on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about if somebody wants to check out your podcast, what distribution networks is it on? How do they check it out?
Yeah, so it's on anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're all over, like Spotify, Apple, all that stuff. And then allthingstelesales.com. If you want to be featured on the podcast, kind of drop us an email at podcast@allthingstelesales.com. You can find me at jakelynn.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, dropping content on Facebook, Instagram, just getting out there on Instagram. Jake Lynn Inspires. I'm really big on inspiration over motivation. And yeah, man, definitely. I appreciate the opportunity to rock with you today, man. I've been looking forward to this, and just keep doing you, man. Keep pumping out this content for the people, bro.
Thanks, man. And thanks for your insight in the show. We really appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. Have a phenomenal week, and we'll catch you next week. Take care.
All right, let's get dialed in.
Dialed in.
Yeah, baby. This was Off the Hook.
So,